politics right now. Donald Trump ready to launch a new phase of his campaign. The Republican frontrunner now ready to spend millions of dollars on campaign ads after depending this entire time on free publicity in the media. He will spend a whole lot of that money in New Hampshire, we're told, where he is still way ahead in the polls with 26%, more than double his closest rivals, and the latest Real Clear Politics average. Listen to this.
I'll be spending a minimum of $2 million a week and perhaps substantially more than that.
Jeb has spent $40 million. And you guys,
no, he hasn't spent $40 million. He's wasted $40 million.
Ouch. Let's talk to Katie Pavlich. She's the nudist editor for townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. So, Katie, with where he is in the polls today, and by the way, if you look at Iowa, he's just a couple points behind, does he need to spend this kind of money?
Well, I think that depends on who you ask. I mean, we've seen over the course of the last presidential election cycle and this cycle that ads aren't necessarily the best way to change voters' minds. Jeb Bush has spent $40 million in ads and actually has seen his poll numbers go down. He hasn't seen an advance in the polls because of that. But I think Donald Trump is approaching this from the perspective of he has to turn his supporters who are answering phone calls from pollsters into voters on primary day in New Hampshire and caucus goers on caucus night in February in Iowa. And so that is going to be his challenge now, is fielding ads and putting ads on the air that encourage people to actually get out and cast their votes for him.
And that's been one of the big questions. What kind of ground game does this candidate have as it compares to some of the other candidates who've been in the system longer, who have that, well, establishment?
Well, in Iowa in particular, where you have to go to a caucus, is a little different than the primary process in New Hampshire. There has been some serious concern among the Trump campaign as well with how they're going to do up against Ted Cruz, who has had a ground game in Iowa, which is paying off in the polls as he starts to catch Trump in that way. So we'll see if that turns around and what kind of ads they're going to run. I envision they'll probably run some ads about telling people how to become a caucus goer for the first time if they're not used to that process in the state of Iowa. But it's important to keep in mind that, yes, Donald Trump is saying he's going to spend $2 million a week, and that might be a lot in terms of per week, but when you look at the fact that there's only 4.5 weeks left before the Iowa caucus, 5.5 before New Hampshire, well, we're looking around $10 million for Trump throughout the entire cycle, well, when Katie, you have other candidates like Bush spending $40 million.
One of the things we don't know yet is if he's going to be spending $2 million per week in all 3 states, South Carolina, Iowa, and New Hampshire, or if it's going to be in each state. That's a huge difference in terms of the number of ads that you can buy on television.
That's true, and the question is, will those ads pay off? And as we've seen with the way that we run elections, the way that people get their information, ads aren't necessarily the best way to move numbers in the campaign. And as we've seen, it's not about numbers for Donald Trump, it's about getting people to the polls. We'll see if those ads make any kind of difference. But it's clear that he's serious and that he wants to compete at every single level against his GOP rivals.
Well, if the number of folks turning out at his rallies are any indication, if he can get them out to vote, he's probably going to do pretty well on caucus night and also the primaries.
All right, that's correct.
Katie, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always
great to see you.
Have a good one.
Thank